Let's just focus actually on some of the political to and fro that followed the state opening. I can't remember seeing Boris Johnson looking quite so cock of the walk as he did this afternoon, but some interesting thoughts from Keir Starmer as well. He said this was a pretty thin legislative agenda.
He did, the leader of the opposition, really going in hard on the economic problems that this country and, to be fair, the European Union and the US are facing too. What the leader of the opposition called stagflation, which is a word that we haven't really heard as common parlance in our politics for many decades. Since the 1970s was the last time that people were seriously talking about damaging inflation coupled with very low or frankly non-existent growth. So yes, some really legitimate criticism there from the leader of the opposition, although not that many solutions from him in terms of what the leader of the opposition would do to stem that inflation or to boost that growth. Again, talking about his windfall tax, but not much beyond that. I do have to note that the chamber did seem pretty quiet during the leader of the opposition's speech. A number of MPs resorting to scrolling through their phones rather than listening, although the leader of the opposition did try and coin a new phrase that we need a government of the moment. His pitch, obviously, that he is the government in waiting, the government that would be a Prime Minister of the moment. The Prime Minister, however, retorted to that later in his address, saying that the leader of the opposition was actually the leader of the opposition of the moment. Clearly a little nod there to the fact that the leader of the opposition may not be the leader of the opposition for much longer, depending on what Durham police have to say. Indeed, in the proposition of this Queen's speech, the loyal address that followed it, there were some lightly comical moments referencing the leader of the opposition's problems with Durham police. Indeed, those were addresses that were received with quite good humour from both sides of the House. Ultimately, though, this did seem like finally we were on to some substantive debate, listening to the leader of the opposition and the Prime Minister talking about alternative programmes for government, far less about wine, cheese, curry and beer, and more about growth, about what we're going to do to look forward in the United Kingdom to a future that is more prosperous than it is at the moment. The Prime Minister acknowledging actually that there are some difficult years ahead, although saying that it's expected that the United Kingdom would be the fastest growing economy in the G7 by 2024. Some problems, however, before that time. It did seem like there was a lot of discussion with regards to the meat on the bones, because that is what this Queen's speech is all about. This Queen's speech is about the substantive programme for government for this parliamentary term. In many ways, this will be the last big opportunity that the government has to push forward substantive policies. The closer we get to a general election, the thinner these Queen's speeches tend to get, the more retail politics they tend to become, and the less substantive. This is probably the last big chance to carry forward something like planning reform, which was mentioned by Prince Charles in that speech. Probably the last big chance to do something meaningful when it comes to levelling up, rebalancing the economy. These big ideas